K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal, that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am America.
Now here's your host, Bryce Robbins.
Hello, everybody. It is good to be back from my standardized testing hiatus. I was just taking the ACTs and the SATs, and, well, it's good to be back. So, we have a lot to talk about. There has been a lot that has happened in the news, from Charleston to Arctic drilling. Today, we're going to be talking about many of these topics. So, first, we're going to talk about the kayaktivists and Arctic drilling and how Obama is a flip-flop. Then we're going to move on, and we're going to talk a little bit about something that Rick and I were talking about on the previous show, Finding Common Ground. We're going to talk about, what does Bernie Sanders mean by "I'm a socialist"? Is that something we should fear? Is it something we should not, go after? Is this an attractive appeal in today's society? We're going to listen to Bernie himself. And then, later in the show, we're going to bring on a guest, and we're going to be talking about gun violence. We're going to be talking about Charleston. We're going to be essentially just pretty much continuing last episode, new guest. So first off, I want to talk about the kayaktivists, but I'm going to play a clip. And all right, this is from Democracy Now!
The Arctic, but not before a final showdown with environmental activists in kayaks. On Tuesday, dozens of kayaktivists were arrested after paddling up to a Shell drilling rig and preventing it from leaving the port of Seattle. Several dozen supporters lined up behind them. The activists set off at 4 a.m. after learning of Shell's plans to leave later that day. Following a brief standoff, Shell's Polar Pioneer was able to depart after the Coast Guard pulled the activists from the water. Monday's action marked the latest in a series of protests since Shell arrived in Seattle last month. Shell is stationing its vessels in the Puget Sound while it drills for oil in pristine and highly remote waters in the Chukchi Sea off the coast of Alaska. Environmentalists warn Arctic drilling will threaten wildlife and worsen climate change. They fear a drilling accident in the icy Arctic Ocean waters could prove far more devastating than the deadly 2010 Gulf of Mexico spill, since any rescue operations could be delayed for months by harsh weather conditions.
The Obama administration's tentatively approved Shell's plans to begin oil extraction off the Alaskan coast this summer. Federal scientists estimate.
Okay, so what we just saw was that not only was it approved by the Obama administration, but that it is happening indeed, and even the voice of the people is not stopping it. This is just an instance of money playing into politics, because Obama was the person who was, stand up to ExxonMobil, stand up to big oil, stand up to this and that, and now he's just approved Arctic drilling. And if we can all recall, wasn't there just a giant oil spill that destroyed a pristine island beach? Well, I don't understand, because we're told, we have a glut of oil, we have so much oil, oil is, coming down in price. The world has so much oil. The United States is producing more oil than ever before. Why do we need to go to the Arctic Circle to get more? I mean, you can say, oh, this is going to create good American jobs. No, it's not, because think about all the negative externalities that are going to come around when this goes sour, because it will. We're going to see an accident. We're going to see all the snow turn brown, filled with oil. We're going to have polar bears covered in oil. And, the only people who are going to benefit is going to be Dawn Soap, because they're the ones who, apparently can clean up the animals after they have oil throughout their freaking feathers. I mean, this is just the biggest flip on the side of Obama, the guy who's supposed to be the champion of the environment. In every single freaking speech, State of the Union, he says we need to leave a better future for our children than we have. But let's be real here. What's happening is he is doing the exact opposite. He's setting us up for failure. He's setting us up to essentially drown in oil. I mean, by allowing Shell to open the floodgates and start drilling in the Arctic, we've now moved ourselves in a position where we say to every other country in the world, including Russia, I emphasize Russia, considering that they own a lot of that part of the world, that it's okay to drill for oil up there, that, it doesn't really matter. And because it's not in the Arctic Circle, then it's not the internationally owned part where there is no oil drilling. But this would still affect that because oil moves, oil spreads. Point being, you're setting a standard, Mr. Obama, that is going to leave the next several generations with issues because you decided it would be good for oil prices, or it would be good for the oil lobby because they want to drill in the Arctic, and because there's more oil there can be more profits that can be made. But realistically, you tell us we have a glut of oil prices have been dropping because we've been producing more oil. Apparently, right, fracking, the technology which I despise, has brought about more oil in a time of oil abundance more so than ever before. That tar sands, the disgusting, slimy, grimy crap coming out of Canada, which will hopefully be reversed because, as we can recall, in Canada, we saw Alberta, where the tar sands is produced, just got a swing to the Liberal side. But besides that, to get back on track, my point is that we're supposed to have all this oil. Why do we need to go the extra mile to go to the pristine land and the pristine ecosystem, the Arctic, and start drilling there? To me, that doesn't make sense. That is foolish, and that is stupid. You're playing with the devil when you do things like that. You're playing really close to the edge. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here. Like playing on the subway, or let's say there's $100 in the subway and you want to go get it, but you see the lights are there. Are you gonna go get it? Like, does it make sense to go get it? It really doesn't. And I hope that was kind of a good analogy because we can see that lights are previous oil incidents, and $100 is the oil there. We were trying to get it, but a disaster is heading towards us. What do? Leave it, because you can get it either other places, or you can produce your energy in different ways. Let's not forget, we are going to run out of oil soon. It was BP themselves who estimated in 2013 that we have 53.3 years left of oil on this planet. To say that we need to go rush right now when we, supposedly have a glut of oil, doesn't make sense to me. We should be expanding our renewables. We should be expanding our nuclear power. We should be expanding all different types of energy, because it honestly makes absolutely no sense to use any more dirty energy when this would leave long-lasting implications for the next generations. Again, I think that this should reach both sides of the aisle, because Rick and I always have the debate about climate change, whether climate change is real or not. And whether you're Rick or me, whether you're the liberal or the conservative, this isn't about climate change. This is about the environment. Both Republicans and Democrats and anybody with eyes can see that when oil spills onto pristine land, it destroys the environment and the ecosystem. And as we saw on the last oil spill on that island, I think it was in California or something, we saw that the company themselves didn't do a cleanup, that the people had to go clean up the mess. I mean, that just goes to show you how money hungry, how foolish these corporations are and what large implications they leave for the next generations. It was the Native Americans who believed that the earth that we walk on is not ours, but belongs to the people of the next 7 generations. And I think we need to walk with that mentality more so. All right. Well, now that I'm done being a greenie environmentalist, I'm going to talk now about socialism. So we hear Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, is doing phenomenally. In his last 2 polls, has polled within 10 points of Hillary Clinton. Remember, he went from being the no-name Vermont senator to now being pushed onto the national stage, and at the debates, I can't wait to see what he's going to pull. Look, Hillary Clinton is the establishment. She is a moderate. She is going to run off the idea that she is experienced, that she knows everything. But to be honest, she doesn't know a lot. She doesn't even know what happened at Benghazi, and she was supposed to be in charge of that. But besides that, I could make a pretty mean joke. She doesn't even know what's going on in her husband's bedroom. But let's to continue on that. Hillary Clinton is portraying herself to be Elizabeth Warren, okay? And she, I guess, is doing well over that, but people don't trust her. She's not a trustworthy person. She's a career politician who is serving her own interests. She just wants to be president. Okay? Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, and I said this in the last show on Finding Common Ground, is a lot like Donald Trump. Not on the ideological scale, but in regard to campaign finance. Donald Trump is funded by himself. He's got billions of dollars, and as I was proven wrong on the last show, he's not worth $9 billion, he's worth $8.37 billion. And Bernie Sanders is not worth nearly that much. But the point is that they're both getting their money from not from mega donors. They're getting it from raising it themselves so that they can portray their own ideas and not portray the ideas of a donor. You see, corporations have so much political power these days, especially after Citizens United, that they can walk in with their hidden lobbyists, sit down, get a cup of coffee with their senator, say, here's $100,000 for your next campaign. Do not sign any bills that have to do with limiting coal, and we'll be good. That's pretty much how it is nowadays. Again, GE is the head of or was one of the heads of the president's job commissions. But GE is creating more jobs abroad than here at home. Again, corporations have so much political power these days that they're sitting in on and being leaders on these types of commissions. But anyways, to the point about Bernie Sanders being a socialist, as I digressed, he has been asked several times, you're a socialist. Why would America elect a socialist? And I fear that too many people all too often who don't really research or haven't researched Bernie Sanders yet think, socialist, what the hell? He wants to bring back the hammer and sickle. He wants to bring us to communist Russia. But that's not the case. So I'm going to let Bernie explain in this clip where he appeared on Late Night with Seth Meyers. Seth is going to ask him, so you're a socialist? And, well, we'll listen here from there.
Talk to you about this campaign. There's been a lot of press about you recently. You describe yourself as a democratic socialist, and that is, some would say, a dangerous thing politically to describe you as. We have a president right now who does not consider himself a socialist, but people call him a socialist as an insult. So are you worried and concerned at all about framing yourself as this, that a thing is so many people have a negative connotation?
Not if we have the opportunity to describe what democratic socialism means. And what that means is you have countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, other European countries which have had social democratic governments and labor governments. And the result of that is, in those countries, healthcare is a right of all people. I don't see that as a great problem. At a time when so many of our young people can't afford to go to college, tuition is free in many of those countries. They have excellent childcare, strong retirement benefits. They're often very strongly pro-environment, taking on climate change. So I think when people understand that in those countries, governments are working for the middle class rather than the billionaire class, I think we can get our message across.
I agree. And as someone who just came back from Sweden, I can also tell you they speak Swedish there. That is it's interesting. I always find that politicians are in trouble whenever they say our country should emulate other countries. I feel like there's this idea that America, certainly when you talk about politics, you have to frame us as we do everything perfectly. Is it dangerous? How hard is it to say we should, in this field, we should be more like?
I think we've got to be honest. There are a lot of things that we do very, very well. But there are things that we do not do particularly well. Are we happy that 99% of all new income is going to the top 1%? Are we happy that one family in this country owns more wealth than the bottom 130 million people? Are we happy that we have a campaign finance system now through Citizens United that allows billionaires to buy elections? Are we happy that we are not fighting effectively against climate change? So I think smart people look around the world, they say, look, this is what we are doing well, but this is what other countries are doing well. And I think we should learn and not be afraid to emulate the good things that are going on in other countries.
Now you are...
All right, so I think that should explain a little bit, and if you want to learn more, you can go check out his website, which is BernieSanders.com, which is actually pretty funny. On his website, it says, paid for by Bernie Sanders, and then underneath it says not the billionaire class. So I think that's pretty funny. But you know, what this shows is really what he's about. And he's about the whole idea of, I guess, more of the Scandinavian idea, that we need to unite more as a society, that we need to unite for social change, and that we should have tuition-free college paid for. His plan, actually, that he introduced, or will be introducing, is funded by Wall Street speculation. You tax Wall Street speculation. And what that means is basically when you have Wall Street speculators who speculate how good stocks are going to do, and they base the transition of large stock off of that. That money would be taxed, a mere 1%. And that would raise $47 billion for the federal government to put forward and say to each state, now raise another $23 billion, and we can make public colleges tuition free. Because nobody should be burdened by the cost of wanting to expand their horizons and their future. Because when we have cheap, affordable college, what we see is that our workforce is far smarter, far more capable to do jobs that are needed to be done. We are losing the good jobs to China and to Mexico. And this is something that Donald Trump went into. Our good jobs are leaving us. And it's not helping that we've already lost manufacturing. Since 2006, we've lost 60,000 manufacturing plants in the United States. We really need to figure out a way to bring the jobs back. And I think a good place to start and a good way to reinvigorate the economy is get people out of college debt. And I think Bernie Sanders brings up a great argument for that. And if that's what his socialism is, then I want to get on that board. Because let's look at it this way. I know a good friend of mine is going to art school, SVA to be exact, and she's going to be in a lot of debt when she gets older. Now, she's doing exactly what society has told her to do. Go get an education. You can better your future. If you get an education, you are now capable to get jobs and make money and produce for yourself. But the problem is, nobody told her she was going to start in a $100,000 hole. That you got to dig yourself out of first, which takes years, and then you can start getting ahead by the time you're in your 30s, by the time you're in your 40s. And that's why people get married later. That's why people have kids later. That's why people aren't buying houses at the same rate they used to in the 50s and 60s. We were really out of our glory days. And if we want to go back to that time, I think we need to start going back to, that time and start emulating the laws and the way life was back then, minus the social change, because I don't want racism and I don't want the suppression of the gay community. But other than that, I think we need to go back to that time legislatively in regards to economics and stuff of that nature. All right, so enough of that. And if you want to learn more about Bernie Sanders socialism, I really encourage you to look him up. Make an informed decision as the voter. All right, so we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with a guest, Sarah. We're going to be talking to her about Charleston. We're going to be talking to her about gun control, and you're not going to want to miss it. And then at the end of that, I have a big announcement to make, and I think it will be good. All right, Rick, roll us into break if you would, please.
The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rails. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of liberty-conservative conservatism.
Where no one is safe, no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
round.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Today. Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant and let's pop out of the segment.
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Hey everybody, this is Jason, host of According to Me. I'd like to invite you to check out my show. It's a 2-hour show that lasts 60 minutes in... listen, I hate to interrupt, but one thing I can do is read off a script. Just say, let me be clear a lot. It works. President Obama, I can handle this. It's a radio promo. I'm not green. I've done this before.
Did someone say green?
Now, Al Gore is here. Listen, I'm just trying to record a radio promo. Do you mind?
Now, do you say good things about me on the show?
No, not at all. But if it makes you feel any better, I rip on Republicans just as much.
The AM radio frequencies give off very high levels of radiation.
Look, my show is on the internet, which you invented. Can I just do my promo?
I got a pen. I can veto that, you know.
I know you got a pen. It's not a law. It's a radio promo. Listen, just listen to my show. Barack Obama and Al Gore hate it, so you're going to love it.
Here's an executive order. Don't listen to his show. He doesn't like me. He's racist. And he doesn't recycle either.
That's it. I'm done. It's According to Me, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on K98 Talk.
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
The feeling most people get when they hear a Barack Obama speech, I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
Steady.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. Ricky Robinson, host of America Off the Rails, will tackle the important issues facing America today as he tries to keep America from coming off the track. Get ready to hear the truth every Monday through Friday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, and on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern and 11 Central here on K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm joined by Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Bryce.
Okay, so we are going to talk about, I guess, Charleston, gun violence, mental illness a little bit. And first I'd like to start by by playing a clip. So, Rick, if you could just roll the clip from Jon Stewart.
I have to. I have one job, and it's a pretty simple job. I come in the morning, and we look at the news, and I write jokes about it, and then I make a couple of faces and like a noise, like a, and then it's just cha-ching, and I'm out the door. But I didn't do my job today. So I apologize. I got nothing for you in terms of like jokes and sounds because of what happened in South Carolina. And maybe if I wasn't nearing the end of the run, or this wasn't such a common occurrence, maybe I could have pulled out of the spiral, but I didn't. And so I honestly have nothing other than just sadness, once again, that we have to peer into the abyss of the depraved violence that we do to each other in the nexus of a just gaping racial wound that will not heal, yet we pretend doesn't exist. And I'm confident, though, that by acknowledging it, by staring into that and seeing it for what it is, we still won't do jack. Yeah, that's us. And that's the part that blows my mind. I don't want to get into the political argument of the guns and things, but what blows my mind is the disparity of response between when we think people that are foreign are going to kill us and us killing ourselves. If this had been what we thought was Islamic terrorism, it would fit into our... We invaded 2 countries and spent trillions of dollars and thousands of American lives, and now fly unmanned death machines over like 5 or 6 different countries, all to keep Americans safe. We got to do whatever we can. We'll torture people. We got to do whatever we can to keep Americans safe. 9 people shot in a church. What about that? Hey, what are you going to do? Crazy is as crazy is, right? That's the part.
All right. So Sarah, I guess we could start this by let me ask you, what do you think about what happened, and I guess your response to what Jon Stewart just said in that clip?
Well, in response to Jon Stewart, I've always loved Jon Stewart. I think I share the response with the majority of Americans, deeply saddened and shocked, yet not shocked, because this continues to happen. And as Jon Stewart said, we pretend like it doesn't, or we try and use scapegoats. In this instance, we say, oh, it's because this man was mentally ill. But what we have to recognize is that, yes, he was mentally ill, but he got this idea from somewhere. And there is a reason that he attacked that specific church. Some major political figures, such as Ron Paul or Rick Santorum, they say, this is a war on religion. But it's not, because this man attacked a black church. He didn't attack any random church. He didn't just open up in a random cafe, open up firing on a random cafe or a street corner. He went to this church because he wanted to make a statement. He walked in there. We saw pictures of him wearing flags of Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa that signify white supremacy. And people are still saying that this isn't a black and white issue, but it is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even when he went in there, he said, "You rape our women and you are taking over our country." In Jon Stewart's episode that he did, he goes and talks about how it's really kind of reversed, and how these people, that church is actually on a street that's named after a Confederate general.
Yes, I've seen the clip.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing that we actually have roads that are named after these generals that, 100 something years ago, those same generals were fighting so that those people could not use those roads as free men. So, I mean, that is definitely an aspect that you have to look at here. And I guess it speaks volumes about race in this country. But I kind of want to jump a little bit to something that John kind of strayed away from, gun violence. And I was kind of talking about it on the last show that we do, Finding Common Ground. And I'm kind of curious, how do you think we can honestly deal with this to a way that makes sense? Because we can't live in a utopian society and just say, guns gone, snap our fingers and they're gone. We can't, in a legitimate world do that. So what do you think is the best alternative?
Well, I think first we have to see things as they are. We can't just keep scapegoating other things, such as mental illness. We have to say, okay, this man, he wanted to do a bad thing, and he was able to do it because of guns. Yes, in retrospect, he could have gotten a knife and still went to kill people, but it's a lot harder to kill a person with a knife, and it's also nearly impossible to do a mass killing with just one person and a knife. And if this man didn't have access to that gun and he just went in there with some other blunt object and wanted to do harm, I think much less people would have died. Maybe nobody would have died. So I think, I think a lot of the solutions have already been put out there, but the government is just not implementing them, such as background checks. I think if, we knew where these guns were going and who they were going to, I think this could have been prevented. I mean, you even heard about on the news how Dylan Roof's roommate had described him talking about wanting to start a civil war and wanting to hurt Black people. And I think that there's always a warning sign. We just have to look for them.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think, what is it? Like hindsight's a bitch, because we look back and clearly this young man seemed to be troubled. But honestly, I mean, if you look at him, he looks like any normal kid. And I don't think
except for when he was wearing a jacket donning white supremacy flags. I think that's literally a red flag.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you know this, but and I encourage everybody to check it out. Opinion Nation News, it's our Facebook page. We have around 3,700 followers. A lot of those people are Southerners, are from the South, and a lot of them think that this idea is of Confederate pride or the Confederate flag is heritage, not hatred. And I kind of wanted to steer our discussion into that. Is what do you think about that? I mean, my opinion is that this flag was flown during a time where we had the enslavement of millions of people, the torture, the rape, the suppression of an entire culture of people in this country. And that flag was flown. The people who fought under that flag fought against our government, and they fought for their idea of states' rights to keep people in bondage. And I think, honestly, that's a horrible flag. And the idea that it's still being flown at the South Carolina State Capitol, what do you think about that? What do you think about the idea of the Confederate flag being heritage, not hatred?
I absolutely disagree. As you said, it's not just about heritage. It was created for a time, and the reason that flag was created was so people could show their support for the Southern states during the Civil War. And what the Southern states supported was slavery. And they could hide behind pretty words. They can say, oh no, we just wanted states' rights. Yeah, but at that time, states' rights to them, that meant slavery. And if people want to wear it at holiday, put it on their houses, anything like that, fine, freedom of speech, that's personal choice. And yes, I will look down upon that, but it's your right. It's the First Amendment. But for it to be flown over government buildings, especially after a tragedy like this one just happened, that's despicable, because that young man, Dylan Roof, who went in there to kill 8 unarmed innocent churchgoers, he saw that flag as an inspiration and as motivation to carry out those terrible actions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that young man is confused, mentally ill, and he wanted to go back to a time where that flag was probably the dominant flag. As he said, he did want a civil war.
But what we also have to remember is that, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's mental illness, but he got that idea from somewhere. And there was a time when his actions wouldn't be that far out. There was a time in our own country, maybe not more than 200 years ago, where you could just go around and kill a black person and you wouldn't get in trouble for it. So when we look at our own history, when we look at our own people from long ago, in a sense, he's not as crazy as everyone makes him out to be, because that was the norm not too long ago.
Yeah, actually, you're 100% right. I mean, we even go back to the 50s. People could get away with it. There were many lynchings back then. But I guess to continue to progress in this, how do you feel, though, that, I mean, there's been this picture that was surfacing, and I posted it on Opinion Nation to see what kind of response I would get. It was a picture of Eric Garner. I'm assuming you know who Eric Garner was, right?
Of course.
Okay. And there's a picture of Eric Garner next to the picture of a bulletproof vest, and it was saying about how the difference about how they were treated. Now, I don't know if that can honestly be a good comparison. It was in reference to police brutality, but I kind of want to gauge what you believe on this. I mean, do you think that this is an instance where we're seeing white privilege? How do you feel about this?
I couldn't hear part of what you said. Who was it? You said there was a picture of Eric Garner and someone in a bulletproof
Garner
vest?
next to side by side with a picture of Dylan Roof. In one picture,
Dylan
Eric Garner is
Roof,
being strangled, and in the other picture, we see Dylan Roof with a bulletproof vest.
And the picture was
being
essentially
taken out by the
saying
cops.
how it was unfair that Eric Garner was killed while Roof wasn't. Is that what the point of the picture was?
I mean, it's basically how they were being treated by police. And I've gauged that a lot of people are saying, well, Eric Garner was a resisting arrest and stuff of that nature. But I kind of want to gauge, how do you feel? Do you feel that this is an instance of white privilege? How do you feel?
In the sense that Dylan Roof was not killed or seriously hurt by police, I don't think that was necessarily white privilege. I think that was privilege of circumstance. And while, yes, race was I believe, a major player in why Eric Garner was killed, I believe that it was not a major player in why Roof was not killed. Because if they just found him, at his house or something, and they were able to apprehend them, instinctually, the police are they're told at the police academy, try not to shoot, try not to kill people. So I don't think that they looked at him and said, oh, he's white, we're going to try and save him. I'm sure they were well aware of his actions and probably scared that he could do something terrible. And if he just walked out and he didn't really resist arrest, then there wasn't any need to use force, which doesn't make what happened to Eric Garner any less bad and less terrible, but it's just kind of circumstance and how they were able to apprehend him.
Right. I know. I agree with you. I mean, that makes sense. And I kind of want to finish off our interview by talking about another point from Jon Stewart's interview, was that he was saying, he really emphasized it, was that we have giant, killing war machines up in the sky for the Islamic countries who we fear as the norm. That's what terrorism is. But we have people like Adam Lanza, we have people like Dylan Roof, we have repeated terrorist attacks coming from, the white, neocon, mentally ill person. And it seems that we are not doing anything or taking precautions as far as we did when it came to a foreign threat. So, do you think we're going to see now, or do you think we ever will see a change in mentality?
I think that sometimes it takes a tragedy for things to change. I know, for one thing, we mentioned that the Confederate flag was flown over government buildings in the South, and recently I believe it was a House of Representative, might have been a senator, I'm not sure, but a Republican politician from South Carolina who's previously supported the donning of that flag in federal buildings and such, or state buildings. After the shooting, he said that the senator who was killed, Senator Pickney, in that shooting was a dear friend of his, and he said that this situation almost opened up his eyes to a lot of the hardships that African Americans still face today. And even though he was previously in support of the Confederate flag, he said that once session opens up again, he's going to propose a bill to remove that flag from government property. And I think that eventually something's going to have to change. We can't live like this forever. Is it going to change now? Unfortunately, I don't know. And I think it's just going to keep building and building and building until something really terrible happens. And quite frankly, I think people can sometimes be inherently selfish and they're choosing to turn away because the reality is too scary. And until there's something on more of a wider scale that happens, I think people are going to continue to ignore it for their own benefit.
Sounds to me a lot like climate change.
That's true.
I agree a lot with what you said. All right, so we're coming to the end of our interview, but I did want to actually ask you one more thing, because I think you'd be a good person to ask, because in our messages you said you did want to talk about it, the whole, I guess, LGBT community real quick. My question is kind of off, and I guess it's not very nice to just kind of shoot a question, but what do you think about Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner? Just curious.
Caitlyn, well, define what you mean. I think of her as a woman because she said she is a woman, and I think we should respect her choices. I think she is an important figure and somebody to be seen as a symbol for transgender people and progress within that community.
No, I mean, I agree with that, and I'm, open when people feel that they want to be different, that's fine. But do you like, I personally didn't like the whole, it was like, she just came out on Twitter and flooded Twitter with that picture, and she came out on, Vanity Magazine. I don't know, was that the right way to go about releasing that she was a woman now? I mean, how do you feel about that?
I think coming out is a process that's different for every person. I mean, obviously, if the person living next door to me was transgender, they wouldn't come out on a magazine cover. I mean, obviously, but for Caitlyn, if she felt that that was the right decision, then that's the right decision for her. It's what she felt comfortable with.
I mean, I definitely see two sides to it. That, she's a symbol that people should change and not feel ashamed of themselves. But I also feel like it was kind of like a publicity stunt that took on, her personal change and kind of Kardashianed it, I guess would be the term. She kind of used it to her advantage, kind of like how Kris Kardashian used her daughter's sex tape to boast them to where they are today. But, I mean, I guess that could just be how I feel. But how do you feel about that? Do you think this could have been a publicity stunt?
I feel like while it could be, and while it definitely probably did help Caitlyn Jenner, I don't think that it was a publicity stunt. I mean, when you look at current social media, think of all the trans people that you know who are famous. Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black, and Caitlyn Jenner, and that is literally it. I mean, lots of celebrities, they literally live in the spotlight. So any major life change is something that they broadcast, something that they would like to share with the world. It could be anything from someone's pregnant to Beyonce, who recently went on live TV just to announce she was a vegan. I mean, these people live in the spotlight, and it's such an important part of her. And honestly, she could be on the Kim Kardashian shows for years to come. But I think that even through the Olympic medals that she has won, I think this is one of the most important things that she could ever do with her career. And that's giving exposure to the transgender community and trying to normalize it, because the more we see it and the more we are exposed to it, the less weird it gets to some people. And that's the first step to acceptance and tolerance.
I agree. And I guess just to play devil's advocate here, I'm just wondering, just to throw it in, should we respect Rachel Dolezal's decision that she's black? I mean, does that fit in there? Because, I mean, I guess you're born transgender, you're born a woman in a man's body, whatever. But should we be respecting her decision if that's what she believes?
Well, if Rachel Dolezal was just a random person on the street who, someone said, oh, by the way, she's actually white. I mean, technically, it's their life and it might seem weird to us, but fine, go your own way. But the thing is, she isn't just a random person on the street, and her masquerade as a black woman actually hurt people. I mean, she used to be the leader of the NAACP in Washington, and that position could have really been given to someone who really, really deserved it, an African American man or woman who had gone through a lot of oppression and had important things to say. And I feel like Rachel stole that from someone who could really use it. I mean, she sent herself hate mail just for personal gain. People actually experience hate crimes and get hate mail, and it could be traumatizing, but she did that just so she could kind of get her story out there. And while transgender, it's recognized by the American Psychology Association. It used to be gender identity disorder, and it's recognized as an actual state of mind that's real and valid, and people will be feeling these feelings since they were a little kid. But Rachel Dolezal, according to her parents, she only started fantasizing about being, a black woman since she was 20s. And while Caitlyn Jenner didn't transition until she was like 50, 60, she had felt this way since she was a little girl. So maybe if the American Psychology Association came out and said, hey, like, this is a real thing, and we can characterize this as a certain state of mind or disorder, or however they choose to classify it, then I'd be willing to say, you know what, okay, I can kind of see this, but until they do that, I don't think that it deserves recognition, especially in Rachel Dolezal's case, when it was used to hurt people and be selfish.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of what you just said. I don't know if I could agree with the last part when somebody has to classify it, because, the FDA classifies a lot of these GMO products as food, and to me it just looks like filler and chemicals being pumped in our body. But
food is not psychology. They're not exactly the same
know. I mean,
thing.
I was just making a comparison for that. But
yeah.
When you said that, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I think there, as Rick said, I think in our last show, I think there is mental illness woven in with Rachel Dolezal. But and I don't think there's mental illness woven in with somebody who's transgender. But I mean, I see what you're saying, and I respect it definitely. All right, well, Sarah, this has been a great interview. It's kind of been refreshing. We've had some crappy ones in the past, so it's good that you came on. We'll definitely have you back. So, do you have anything last things to say, or?
I think we basically summed it up.
All right, so you'll definitely be back. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, thanks for the opportunity. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so to finish out today's show, I'm kind of just going to sum it up for the last couple minutes, and then I have a big announcement to make. And it's not an announcement like Caitlyn Jenner's or Rachel Dolezal's. I am not transgender, nor am I black. This is an event that will be happening, and you're just going to have to wait so I can kind of run the clock on my show a little bit. All right, so here's what we learned, was that Bernie Sanders' socialism, well, he's not really the socialist that everybody's playing him up to be. That, in all honesty, he wants better social change, more social change that will favor the people, not corporations, that will favor everybody rather than the upper class. He does believe in the distribution of wealth only because it has been distributed because of Reaganomics to the very, very top. And subsequently, things need to change. We also talked about, the Arctic drilling, and how Obama is a flip-flop, and how Obama is not protecting the people of tomorrow, about how he is selling you a freaking bridge. If you believe that he's a protector of the environment, because he's honestly not. Arctic drilling is an terrible idea. It is going to be a huge, nail in the side of planet Earth. It's really a terrible idea. I encourage you to go sign petition after petition, get it to the president's desk, and we can change what is happening. There is a policy that I actually admire of the Obama administration. If you can get a petition with 100,000 signatures or more, they will have to publicly acknowledge it. So maybe I guess we should be doing that. Because, whether you're pro using oil or not, I mean, I think an honest, smart person has to realize We cannot go without oil. We're freaking addicted to it like cocaine addicts are addicted to cocaine. We need this shit. Problem is we need to wean ourselves off of it because in the future it's going to be gone. It'll be out of here. Goodbye. And we're going to tap ourselves dry. And God, that's what she said joke. Oh my God, I'm saying way too many of those. But at least I caught myself. But we are going to drill ourselves dry of oil, and we are going to look back and say, by God, we really screwed ourselves this time. The future, I think, is going to be, at least for the automobile industry, either in electric or hydrogen fuel cells. Now, I think that's right around the corner. But I think that needs to be in conjunction with smart legislation and smart action for the future. We need to stop corporate lobbying, corporate welfare, corporate, policies flooding into our political arena, because that's how you get the TPA, the TPP, and all the freaking, business-sponsored programs. So, in all honesty, that shit needs to get cut out. And that's why I admired what Donald Trump said. If you haven't heard his speech, I really encourage you to listen to it. That's also why I'm voting for Bernie Sanders, because, hey, that's just who he is. So I encourage you to look into those people. I really do. And on next week's episode, we're going to talk to my buddy Liam. We're going to be talking to him about, Rand Paul. He recently released a video about his idea for the flat tax and his idea for taxation. And, we'll go from there because he is a conservative with some common sense. All right. So now it is time for the big announcement. Over this past week, I was talking with Rick, and we've decided that since this is now the summer and it's time for some summer fun, Opinion Nation will continue today on Saturdays, as I always do, but we're going to go late night as well, to Late Night Nation, and we are going to be on from 11 to 12 at night, which is kind of funny because we're on from 11 to 12, but in the morning on Saturdays. And our show is going to be centered more around debate, more around arguing, more around getting you riled up before you go to bed. Because, why go to sleep when you can get your blood pressure up? And we're going to debate and argue and bring on guests, and it's going to be a great time. So we don't know when it's going to start yet. It'll start within the next couple weeks. But just remember, Opinion Nation is going to be Late Night Nation, and we're still going to run today as always. And this is our show. But for this summer, we're going to go late night, and we're going to see where that takes us. And I've been getting some emails from viewers. I've been getting some, really a huge increase in social media following, social media contact. We just surpassed like 50 likes on one of our posts. I felt really good. I felt like I really accomplished something there. All right, but anyways, don't forget about it. Late Night Nation. We're going to start running ads for it. I'm going to talk about it every episode. For when it kicks off, Late Night Nation, you better be there, 11 to 12. We're going to be on till midnight. We're going to have fun. We're going to debate. We're going to talk literally about everything under the sun. It's just going to spitball with guests, and we're going to see where it goes from there. But all right, so I guess I'll leave you with a message, kind of like I always do. We're living in a society where we are so viciously looking at how we can better ourselves. Whether, you're talking about how our parents do the helicopter parenting these days, kind of overseeing everything. And we're seeing safety regulations are put on everything. And we don't really care about certain things that should matter, but we care about things that really don't matter. Like, for instance, what I was talking about earlier, we cared so much about climate change is what it seems, but we don't do anything about it. We care so much about gun violence, but we don't seem to be doing anything about it. We care so much about income inequality, but we don't seem to be doing anything about it. My point is, I guess, for everybody for this week, would be, when you see something is wrong, don't just sit by and do nothing. Do something. The old poem goes, I think it definitely applies here. It was a Holocaust poem. It said, When they came for the gypsies, I did nothing. When they came for the Jews, I did nothing. When they came for the Catholics, I did nothing. And when they came for me, there was nobody to save me. Point being, we need, whatever side of the aisle you find yourself on, we're in a time where America and our way of life is under attack. And I don't mean, the white supremacist idea of our land is under attack. I mean our land is under attack by a government that is run with liars, cheaters, and thieves who are trying to steal the American dream, who are trying to steal the American way away from us. And I think it's being led by the big corporations and the big special interest groups who want to increase their profits. Because as Prince EA would say, we're putting profit above people and greed above need. So we need a paradigm shift in our way of thinking, in the people we elect. And I think we can start by at least, hopefully if Donald Trump says what he says is true, then start by maybe if you're a Republican, look at him. And if you're a liberal, look at Bernie Sanders, look at Elizabeth Warren. But I think that these are the people who we need to start looking at, people who aren't backed by, secondary sources. Because we need an honest government that is going to govern the way our founding fathers intended it to be. And that also means breaking up the banks. All right, well, I'm sure I probably am going to anger enough people by saying that. But we will be back next week, and you better stay in tune for Late Night Nation. That's our show, and you'll catch us next week. All right, Rick, if you could take us out as you always do.
Welcome to Opinion Nation.
And we stand today on the edge of a new frontier.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal.
I, too, am American.